somewhere in a museum basement sits a 2,000-year-old bronze device, so advanced engineers still argue about it. Off the Egyptian coast lies a city historians swore never existed. In a Russian bog, a wooden idol twice as old as the pyramids carries a message nobody can read. The ancient world left behind objects that quietly humiliate modern textbooks, and we're about to walk through the strangest of them all. 1. The Antikythera mechanism is the reason every history teacher carries an emergency aspirin. Greek sponge divers hauled this corroded bronze lump from a shipwreck in 1901, and for 50 years, nobody realized what it was. Eventually, researchers cracked it open and found a 2,000-year-old hand-cranked device packed with 30 interlocking gears, capable of predicting eclipses, tracking planetary motion, and timing the Olympic Games. What we know is that ancient Greek engineers were astonishingly skilled. What remains debated is how this technology developed and why nothing remotely this complex appears again for another 1,400 years. The past, apparently, was way nerdier than expected. 2. Göbekli Tepe. In modern Turkey is the temple that quietly humiliated half of archaeology. Built around 9,500 BC, it predates farming, pottery, writing, and the wheel by thousands of years. Hunter-gatherer communities somehow quarried 20-ton T-shaped pillars, decorated them with foxes, scorpions, and vultures, and arranged them into massive ceremonial circles. The site is 6,000 years older than Stonehenge. The truly strange twist is that the entire complex was deliberately buried under heaps of dirt centuries later, for reasons nobody has untangled yet. What's clear is that early societies were doing far more than archaeologists ever credited them with. 3. The Baghdad Battery is a 2,000-year-old clay jar that has become the favorite party trick of fringe documentaries everywhere. Discovered near Baghdad in 1936, the jar contains a copper cylinder, an iron rod, and traces of acidic residue. Recreations confirm the design produces about 1 volt, which is admittedly impressive for ancient pottery. The popular claim is that Parthians invented electricity. The more grounded view is that it may have been used for electroplating, ritual purposes, or possibly stored scrolls. Honestly, the most likely answer is the least exciting one. The real mystery is how often history hides ordinary things behind extraordinary rumors. 4. The Voynich manuscript is a 240-page medieval book that has personally ruined every cryptographer who's ever opened it. Written around the early 1400s in a script existing nowhere else on Earth, it's filled with imaginary plants, ladies bathing in suspicious green plumbing, and astrological charts matching no known sky. The CIA tried decoding it, the NSA tried, Renaissance scholars tried, everyone walked away muttering. Theories range from forgotten herbal medicine to elaborate medieval prank by a bored con artist looking for patron money. 600 years later, the manuscript sits at Yale University, still refusing to give up a single word. 5. The Nazca Lines are what happens when an entire civilization commits to outdoor doodling on a colossal scale. Carved into the Peruvian desert between 500 BC and 500 AD are over 300 massive geoglyphs, including hummingbirds, monkeys, spiders, and one waving figure nicknamed the astronaut. The catch is that most are only visible in their full shape from high above ground. What's well established is that the Nazca people created them for ceremonial purposes. What remains debated is the exact meaning. Messages to gods? Ritual paths? Astronomical markers? The desert has been quietly keeping that answer for 2 millennia. 6. Roman dodecahedra arrive in our story shrouded in genuine silence. Over 100 of these 12-sided hollow bronze objects have been pulled from former Roman territory, each studded with knobs and pierced by holes of different sizes. The unsettling part isn't the design itself. It's the absence. Romans documented practically everything from sewer maintenance schedules to bathroom wall complaints, yet not a single ancient writer ever once mentioned what these objects were for. Theories include knitting tools, candle holders, military gauges, and religious icons. The truth is buried somewhere in a conversation that 2,000 years of history simply never bothered to record. 7. Puma Punku sits high in the Bolivian Andes like an architectural ghost story. Built around 500 AD, the site features H-shaped andesite blocks fitted together with eerie precision, right angles sharp enough to slice paper, and surfaces polished smoother than they should be. Andesite is one of the hardest stones on Earth. The Tiwanaku builders had no iron tools and no written language to leave us hints. What stands today are silent slabs hauled to an altitude where modern visitors struggle to breathe. Researchers continue debating exactly how the precision was achieved, and the wind on that plateau offers no answers, only patience. 8. Sacsayhuaman above Cusco rises out of the Andean mist like something that simply shouldn't exist. Inca masons fitted boulders weighing up to 200 tons into fortress walls so tightly that even a thin blade can't slip between them. No mortar, no visible chisel marks. When Spanish conquistadors arrived in the 16th century, they reportedly believed demons must have built the place because no human technique they recognized could explain it. The walls have outlived earthquakes that flattened colonial buildings around them. The Inca were undeniably brilliant engineers, yet the precise methods they used to shape and move these stones remain only partially understood. 9. Costa Rica's stone spheres rest scattered across the Diquís Delta like forgotten marbles from a game nobody remembers starting. Over 300 of these near-perfectly round stones lie throughout the jungle, ranging from grapefruit size to over 6 feet wide and weighing up to 15 tons. They were carved roughly 1,500 years ago. The civilization that made them left no written explanation. Banana plantation workers rediscovered the spheres in the 1930s, and several were unfortunately dynamited in misguided treasure hunts. Modern researchers believe they served ceremonial or status-related purposes, but the deeper meaning and the techniques used to shape them so precisely remain quietly mysterious. 10. The Yonaguni Monument off the southern coast of Japan emerges underwater like a half-remembered dream. Discovered by divers in 1986, the formation features flat terraces, sharp angles, staircase-shaped ledges, and what looks unsettlingly like a carved face. Many geologists insist the structure is entirely natural, shaped by tectonic stress and ocean currents over thousands of years. Other researchers argue parts of it may have been modified by humans when sea levels were lower. If even partial human involvement is confirmed, it would raise major questions about prehistoric coastal communities in East Asia. For now, the monument sits silently below the waves, refusing to clarify. 11. The Longyu Caves were uncovered in 1992 when a Chinese villager attempted to drain what he thought was a bottomless pond. Instead, he revealed 24 enormous hand-carved caverns, with ceilings reaching 40 meters high and walls covered in mysterious parallel chisel marks. Roughly 1 million cubic meters of solid siltstone were removed by hand over 2,000 years ago. Here's the detective puzzle. No tools were left behind. No skeletons, no paintings, no surviving documents mention the project. China kept meticulous historical records for millennia. Yet somewhere along the way, the existence of an entire underground complex slipped completely out of memory. 12. The Piri race map is a 1513 Ottoman world chart that has become a magnet for wild theories. Some writers have claimed it shows the coastline of Antarctica beneath the ice, but many historians firmly dispute that interpretation. The real mystery isn't hidden Antarctica. It's how surprisingly accurate Piri race was for his time, especially regarding the Atlantic coastlines of Africa and South America. He openly wrote that he combined roughly 20 older source maps, some allegedly dating to antiquity. What detective work historians are still doing is tracing where those source maps actually came from, since most of them no longer exist. 13. The Phaistos disk is a small clay disk unearthed on Crete in 1908, dated to around 1700 BC, and it has driven linguists to early retirement for over a century. Both sides feature 241 mysterious symbols arranged in a spiral, depicting walking figures, fish, helmets, and shields. The detective angle here is fascinating. Each symbol was pressed in using individual stamps, technically making this the earliest known example of movable type, roughly 3,000 years before Gutenberg. The script appears nowhere else in human history. Every translation attempt produces wildly different results. Every clue points somewhere different, and the trail goes cold every time. 14. The Saqqara bird was pulled from an Egyptian tomb in 1898, and it has quietly puzzled researchers ever since. Carved from sycamore wood about 2,200 years ago, this small artifact looks broadly bird-like, but its wings are straight and flat, and its tail features an unusual upright fin. Some researchers have suggested the design has aerodynamic properties and built scaled models that glide moderately well. Mainstream Egyptology views it as a stylized representation of a bird, possibly a ceremonial or decorative object. Whether ancient craftsmen were experimenting with form, function, or simply artistic interpretation remains an open question, and the bird isn't telling. 15. The Olmec colossal heads are 17 massive basalt sculptures carved in ancient Mexico starting around 1500 BC. Each head stands up to 11 feet tall and weighs as much as 50 tons. The detective trail begins at a basalt quarry roughly 50 miles away, where the boulders were originally cut. From there, the Olmecs somehow transported them through dense jungle and across rivers without wheels or draft animals. Mainstream archaeology identifies the heads as portraits of individual rulers. What remains genuinely debated is the exact transport method. Sledges, log rollers, and river rafts have all been proposed, but no definitive evidence has surfaced yet. 16. Derinkuyu is the underground city a Turkish homeowner accidentally discovered in 1963 while renovating his basement. He knocked down a wall, found a tunnel, and eventually wandered into a fully developed subterranean metropolis stretching 18 stories deep, capable of sheltering 20,000 people. There were stables, churches, wineries, schools, and ventilation shafts that still function today. Massive rolling stone doors could seal entire levels from intruders. The site is at least 2,800 years old. Imagine the staggering scale of carving an entire city downward into solid rock, by hand, with ancient tools, and you start to grasp why archaeologists call it one of the greatest hidden achievements of the ancient world. 17. The Sangxingdui civilization was discovered by accident in 1986 when Chinese workers in Sichuan province dug up bronze masks unlike anything in recorded history. Bulging eyes, pupils sticking out 3 full inches, and faces stretched into impossibly long proportions. Dated to around 1200 BC, these artifacts belong to a previously unknown culture whose art looks completely unlike neighboring Chinese kingdoms of the same era. Even more astonishing, the Sangxingdui people mastered sophisticated bronze casting techniques that took other regions centuries longer to develop. They built a massive city, produced thousands of unique artworks, and then mysteriously disappeared from the historical record entirely. 18. The Shigir idol is a wooden statue pulled from a Russian peat bog in 1894, originally about 17 feet tall and covered in geometric patterns and small carved faces. The wow moment came when carbon dating revealed it is roughly 12,500 years old. That makes it twice as old as the pyramids and more than twice as old as Stonehenge. It is the oldest known wooden sculpture on Earth. The patterns carved into it appear to convey some kind of meaning, possibly symbolic, spiritual, or narrative, though no one has deciphered them. Imagine a message preserved perfectly across 12 millennia, and humanity is still standing there squinting at it. 19. The Plain of Jars in central Laos is exactly what it sounds like. An entire highland region scattered with thousands of massive stone jars, some standing over 10 feet tall and weighing several tons. There are over 90 separate clusters spread across the landscape, dating back roughly 2,000 years. Local legends speak of giants using them for drinking vessels, but archaeologists believe they were likely connected to ancient burial practices. Human remains have been found near several sites. The astonishing part is the sheer scale of the project. Carving and transporting thousands of enormous stone vessels across mountainous terrain required organization and effort historians are still struggling to estimate. 20. The Lycurgus cup is a 1,600-year-old Roman glass goblet that performs a magic trick no one could explain until 1990. Light it from the front and it glows rich jade green. Light it from behind and it turns deep blood red. For centuries, this color-changing effect baffled every scholar who handled it. Modern electron microscope analysis finally revealed the truth. The Romans had embedded particles of silver and gold so unbelievably small that they qualify as nanoscale. Whether Roman glassmakers understood the underlying science or stumbled into the technique through generations of experimentation, The cup remains one of the most jaw-dropping achievements of ancient craftsmanship. 21. The Tarim mummies are hundreds of remarkably preserved bodies discovered in western China's Tarim Basin, dating from roughly 1800 BC to 200 AD. Several of them have light-colored hair and clothing styles that surprised researchers, including woven patterns resembling ancient Eurasian textile traditions. Genetic analysis suggests complex migration and cultural contact across Eurasia much earlier than many people imagine. Thousands of years before the Silk Road officially connected East and West, communities were already moving, mixing, and trading across enormous distances. The exact routes, the reasons, and the eventual fate of these populations remain one of archaeology's most fascinating ongoing investigations. 22. Heraklion was an ancient Egyptian port city mentioned in Greek legends as such an important trading hub that even Helen of Troy supposedly stopped by. For over 1,000 years, historians dismissed it as pure fiction, treating it as the ancient equivalent of a tall tale. Then in the year 2000, a French archaeologist diving off Egypt's coast literally swam into the entire submerged city sitting on the seafloor, intact temples, massive statues, sphinxes, shipwrecks. Earthquakes and rising sea levels had swallowed Heraklion roughly 1,200 years ago. The bigger lesson is how easily an entire celebrated city can vanish from collective memory until the sea politely hands it back. 23. Stonehenge in southern England has been confusing humans for so long that even confused humans now look confused next to it. Built in stages between roughly 3000 and 2000 BC, the inner ring is made of bluestones weighing up to 4 tons each. The truly absurd part is that those stones came from quarries in Wales, roughly 150 miles away. Neolithic builders somehow dragged them across rivers, hills, and probably several existential crises to get them there. Why these specific stones? Why that exact spot? Modern archaeology has solid theories about ceremonies and astronomy, but the full motivation remains comfortably outside our understanding. 24. The Easter Island Moai are nearly 1,000 giant stone statues scattered across one of the most isolated islands on Earth. Carved between 1250 and 1500 AD by the Rapa Nui people, the largest standing figure weighs 80 tons. Now here's the part that sounds made up but isn't. Local oral tradition insists the statues walk to their final positions. Researchers eventually tested this by rigging up ropes and rocking smaller replicas back and forth, and it actually works. Yes, the ancient solution was apparently to teach stone giants to waddle. Sometimes history is funnier than fiction. 25. The Great Pyramid of Giza is a 4,500-year-old pile of approximately 2.3 million stone blocks averaging 2.5 tons each. For centuries, everyone has agreed that the ancient Egyptians built it, but the exact construction methods continue to spark professional shouting matches. Ramps? Internal spiral ramps? Water-assisted lifting? Some combination nobody has cracked yet? Every theory has supporters, holes, and frustrated Egyptologists. What's hilarious is that the Egyptians themselves apparently considered it so obvious they never bothered writing down the instructions, leaving humanity to permanently squint at a giant triangle of unanswered questions. 26. Cleopatra's tomb is officially history's most awkward missing celebrity item. She was the last pharaoh of Egypt, one of the most famous figures of antiquity, and she died around 30 BC in Alexandria. Then her tomb, along with the body of Mark Antony, simply vanished from the record. Archaeologists have been politely turning over Egypt for decades looking for it. Several promising leads have surfaced, including a temple at Taposiris Magna currently being excavated, but nothing definitive has emerged. One of the most documented women in ancient history apparently picked the world's best hiding spot for her own final resting place. 27. The Indus Valley script is the ancient writing system that has personally insulted every linguist alive. Used by the Indus Valley civilization between roughly 2600 and 1900 BC, it appears on thousands of seals, pottery shards, and tablets across what is now Pakistan and northwest India. The civilization itself was enormous, sophisticated, and remarkably well organized. Yet despite a century of attempts using everything from comparative linguistics to artificial intelligence, the script has never been deciphered. Most inscriptions are only a few characters long, which doesn't help. An entire literate civilization left behind notes, and nobody can read a single word. 28. The terracotta army emerges from the soil near Xi'an like a frozen military parade, waiting for orders that never came. Discovered in 1974 by farmers digging a well, the site contains over 8,000 life-sized clay soldiers, each with unique facial features, guarding the tomb of China's first emperor, Qin Shi Huang. The eerier part is that the emperor's actual burial mound has never been opened. Ancient texts describe an underground palace flooded with rivers of liquid mercury and protected by booby traps. Soil samples around the mound do show unusually high mercury levels. The chamber remains sealed, silent, and quietly waiting. 29. Linear A is the ancient script of the Minoan civilization on Crete, used between roughly 1800 and 1450 BC. Inscriptions appear on clay tablets, seals, and religious objects across the island. But despite belonging to one of the most influential cultures of the Bronze Age, the script has never been translated. Its successor, Linear B, was successfully decoded in 1952 and turned out to be an early form of Greek. Linear A, however, refuses to play along. Many of the symbols look similar to Linear B, but consistently produce gibberish. The Minoans left their thoughts on stone, and silence answered back. 30. The Rongorongo script of Easter Island appears on roughly 24 wooden tablets carved by the Rapa Nui people sometime before European contact. The glyphs depict birds, fish, humans, and abstract shapes arranged in a unique writing pattern called reverse boustrophodon, where every other line is upside down. Reading it requires literally rotating the tablet between lines. By the time Europeans arrived in the 1700s, the knowledge of how to read Rongorongo had already faded among the islanders themselves. Today, no fluent reader exists anywhere on Earth. The whispers of an isolated civilization are sealed inside carved wood forever. 31. The 9th Roman Legion is the empire's most famous case of a disappearing military unit. Stationed in Britain during the early 2nd century AD, the legion of roughly 5,000 soldiers simply stops appearing in Roman records after around 120 AD. The detective trail goes cold remarkably quickly. Theories include a catastrophic defeat by Celtic tribes in northern Britain, a transfer to the eastern frontier where they were later destroyed, or gradual disbandment that was never properly documented. The Romans were famously obsessive record keepers, which makes this silence suspicious. 5,000 armed men cannot simply evaporate, yet apparently 5,000 did. 32. The Cocknow stone in Scotland is a slab covered with roughly 90 mysterious carvings, including cup and ring marks, spirals, and geometric patterns. Made around 3000 BC by Neolithic communities, the symbols appear at sites across northern Europe but have never been deciphered. The detective work has narrowed the possibilities to astronomical markers, territorial boundaries, religious symbols, or some early form of communication. None of those theories are fully proven. The stone was actually buried by archaeologists in 1965 to protect it from vandalism and only fully re-excavated in 2016. The carvings remain a quiet puzzle waiting for someone clever enough to read them. 33. Newgrange in Ireland is a passage tomb built around 3200 BC, making it older than both the Great Pyramid and Stonehenge. The structure consists of a circular mound roughly 80 meters wide, containing a long stone corridor leading to an inner chamber. Here's the detective angle. Once a year during the winter solstice, sunlight enters through a small opening above the entrance and travels precisely down the corridor to illuminate the inner chamber for about 17 minutes. The alignment required intense astronomical knowledge 5,000 years ago. Who calculated the angle, why they chose this exact orientation, and how they understood solar geometry remain genuinely impressive open questions. 34. The Iron Pillar of Delhi has been standing in the open air for roughly 1,600 years without rusting, which is essentially a metallurgical miracle. Built around 400 AD during the Gupta Empire, the pillar stands over 7 meters tall and weighs about 6 tons. Modern researchers eventually solved part of the puzzle. The iron contains an unusually high phosphorus content, which forms a thin protective layer of crystalline iron hydrogen phosphate hydrate on the surface. What remains debated is whether the ancient metallurgists understood this chemistry intentionally or stumbled into it through generations of experimentation. Either way, the pillar continues to stand, quietly outlasting modern bridges. 35. The Baalbek Temple complex in Lebanon contains some of the largest hand-cut stones ever moved by ancient civilizations. Built mostly during the Roman era, the foundation includes 3 massive blocks called the trilithon, each weighing roughly 800 tons. Nearby in the quarry sits an even bigger block called the Stone of the South, weighing approximately 1,000 tons. The detective question is how Roman engineers moved stones this enormous, since modern cranes still struggle with that weight. Documented Roman techniques involved pulleys, sledges, and astonishing manpower. Even with those tools, the logistics pushed the limits of what was thought possible at the time. 36. Damascus steel is the legendary metal used in Middle Eastern blades between roughly 300 and 1700 AD, famous for its distinctive wavy patterns and remarkable strength. The detective puzzle here is that the original production technique was completely lost sometime in the 1700s. Modern metallurgists have spent decades trying to recreate it, and recent analysis revealed the steel contained carbon nanotubes and cementite nanowires, structures we associated with 21st century materials science. Whether ancient swordsmiths understood what they were forging at that level is unknowable. The recipe vanished with the last masters, and every attempt to fully reconstruct it falls just slightly short. 37. Roman concrete is the building material that has quietly outlived empires, cathedrals, and several modern parking garages. Structures like the Pantheon, built in 126 AD, still stand intact, while modern concrete buildings crumble after a few decades. The detective work cracked part of the case in 2023. Researchers discovered that Roman concrete contained tiny lime clasts that actually self-heal cracks when exposed to water, dissolving and recrystallizing to fill gaps. The Romans likely used a process called hot mixing, adding quicklime directly during preparation. Modern construction is now studying their technique, which is a delightful reversal of who's teaching whom. 38. The Lascaux cave paintings in southwestern France are roughly 17,000 years old and rank among the most stunning artistic achievements humans have ever produced. The walls feature over 600 painted animals, including horses, bison, deer, and one mysterious creature. Researchers nicknamed the unicorn. Created by Paleolithic communities using mineral pigments and rudimentary tools, the artwork displays sophisticated perspective, shading, and even early animation techniques where overlapping limbs suggest movement. Ice Age humans, working by flickering torchlight in cramped caves, produced art that still moves viewers today. Whatever inspired them, the result outlasted civilizations, languages, and most of recorded history. 39. The Hypogeum of Halsaflieni in Malta is a 5,000-year-old underground temple carved 3 levels deep into solid limestone. Workers stumbled into it in 1902 while digging a cistern, revealing a stunning prehistoric structure containing burial chambers, altars, and carved doorways imitating above-ground architecture. The most astonishing feature is the acoustics. The oracle chamber resonates at roughly 110 Hz, a frequency that produces measurable effects on human brain activity. Stand in the right spot, and the sound surrounds you like nothing modern engineering could intentionally design. Whether ancient builders understood acoustic science or got remarkably lucky, the experience remains genuinely overwhelming. 40. Ötzi the Iceman is the 5,300-year-old mummy hikers discovered frozen in the Alps in 1991. He was so well preserved that researchers could analyze his last meal, his tattoos, his clothing, and even the contents of his digestive system. The wow factor keeps stacking up. Ötzi carried a copper axe that pushed back assumptions about Bronze Age metallurgy. He had 61 tattoos arranged in patterns that may relate to ancient acupuncture points. He suffered from heart disease, joint pain, and Lyme disease. He was apparently killed by an arrow to the back. A single frozen body delivered more information about prehistoric Europe than entire libraries. 41. The Carnac stones in northwestern France consist of over 3,000 standing stones arranged in long parallel rows stretching across several kilometers. Erected between roughly 4,500 and 3,300 BC by Neolithic communities, the alignment represents one of the largest collections of megaliths anywhere on Earth. The wow factor lies in the sheer scale. Some stones weigh several tons, and the rows extend with deliberate geometric precision across the landscape. Local legend says a Roman legion was turned to stone by a saint, which is delightful but probably inaccurate. Modern theories favor ceremonial, astronomical, or burial-related functions, though the exact purpose remains genuinely unknown. 42. Mount Nemrut in southeastern Turkey is crowned by a 2,000-year-old royal tomb sanctuary unlike anything else in the ancient world. Built by King Antiochus I of Commagene around 60 BC, the summit features colossal stone heads of gods and the king himself, originally attached to seated statues nearly 30 feet tall. Earthquakes eventually toppled the heads, which now sit scattered across the mountaintop, staring at the horizon with serene indifference. The king's actual burial chamber, believed to lie beneath an artificial cone of crushed rock at the peak, has never been located. Visiting at sunrise feels less like archaeology and more like trespassing on myth. 43. Cahokia was the largest pre-Columbian city north of Mexico, built in what is now Illinois between roughly 1050 and 1350 AD. At its peak, Cahokia housed an estimated 20,000 people, making it larger than London at the time. The city featured massive earthen mounds, including Monk's Mound, which still stands as the largest prehistoric earthwork in the Americas. Then Cahokia gradually emptied out, and by 1400 AD, the entire city was abandoned. Theories range from environmental degradation to political collapse to climate stress. Whatever happened, an enormous, sophisticated society quietly walked away from one of the great metropolises of its era. 44. The Library of Alexandria is history's most heartbreaking missing collection. Founded in Egypt around 285 BC, it housed an estimated several 100,000 scrolls representing the accumulated knowledge of the ancient Mediterranean world. Mathematics, astronomy, medicine, philosophy, literature, geography, all gathered under one roof. Then, over several centuries, through fires, political turmoil, and gradual decline, the library was lost. What's debated is exactly how and when the final collapse happened. What's certain is the staggering scale of what disappeared. Entire works by ancient authors are known to us only as titles mentioned in surviving texts. The silence is genuinely painful. Bronze computers, walking statues, sunken cities, glowing Roman cups. Every story documented, every mystery still open. But 44 was never enough. So tell me honestly, which absolutely insane ancient discovery did this video forget to mention, and why does it deserve a spot more than anything you just watched? Drop it in the comments, hit like and subscribe because what's coming next somehow gets even stranger.